like the other speakers, I did not have a PowerPoint or plan remarks, because I wanted to react to what is happening today. By way of a little background, I grew up in Winston-Salem, part of the Winston-Salem school system, like a fine representative up here at Haynes. Unlike him, though, I didn't go to college. I went to North Carolina State University, which and graduated from Campbell Law School. Went into private practice in 1982, and in 1996 I began my career with education. I served 16 years on Forsyth County Board, 5 years on Forsyth Tech Board, and now I'm in my, I don't know, since 2013 State Board. What that means is I'm old, and it also means I have a penchant of taking non-paying thankless jobs. It also means that I pay the student tax in a lot of things that we've done today, because there's really only two policy considerations that I've always operated on. One is the carpenter's rule. The other is a kind of a Hippocratic oath for educators. First, do no harm. We can't forget that the leader in the class, the leader in education in North Carolina is the teacher in the classroom. And any policy we need to say, is it going to do any harm? And if it is, we need to do something different. The other issue is the carpenter's rule, and that's measure twice and cut once. And I'm thankful that both Representative Blackwell and Senator Tillman are recognizing that this is something that is not an easy fix if you're going to do a comprehensive fix. And I think that that's what we're hearing today. I think that adequate base is a must. Everybody recognizes that when we delete the teacher pay from the administrative pay, we've created an unintended consequence, which is to the detriment. That is a relatively easy fix. You either link it again, you set up another schedule, you decide what that base level is going to be, because you have to have an adequate base. The reason why I say that is when I first got on the Winston-Salem board, we were going to use our supplemental pay to do merit pay. We thought we really knew what we were doing. Then we found out that supplemental pay was the base pay that was needed to be competitive in Winston-Salem with everybody else. So until you have adequate base pay, I don't care what the incentive that the professor talked about, or the pay performance thing that Ms. Bird talked about, but until you have that, you can't make those kind of educationally sexy leaps into changing the outcome in the classroom. And so I think that legislators got to recognize what that is. And so the first question I think you need to ask is, how much money do you have? Because how much money you have determines everything that you're going to do from there on. And I think that when you start taking a look at principals, during my 16 years on the Winston-Salem board, our superintendent allowed board members to participate in the selection of principals. And and over my time, I probably recommended 50 or more. Not one would I have recommended if I thought I had to give them a bonus to do the job. Because quite frankly, we have a contract, and if they're not doing their job, then it's very easy to fix that problem. But I will tell you, the observation that I made is that many times we would pick a principal that we thought would be incredibly good, and they became incredibly bad. And others that we thought would never be, but that's just who we had to deal with, and they became superstars. But then we had others that I remember too, that as a board member, we were ready to terminate their contract, and we were persuaded by their supervisors, give them another chance. And right now, they are instructional leaders of the highest regard. So what happened? What happens among principals is that, in this state, is that they graduate, not from universities, but they graduate from on-the-job training. They pay the student tax, and they learn from it. And we have to give people the opportunities in control situations to be involved in the classroom, to be involved in the schools, to do that. The first thing that I would request, if you folks are going to be good enough to give us more than adequate base, is that we find a way to have money for training. And not just training for principals, training for assistant principals. There are many kinds of assistant principals. Most assistant principals will be career assistant principals. only because there's only a certain amount of spots slated for them. But that doesn't mean they're not incredibly valuable leaders. We have a digital learning plan that we're pushing forward. Assistant principals trained in digital learning, assistant principals trained in ESL, assistant principals trained in community engagement, homeschool coordination, things, at-risk services. They're incredibly valuable for two reasons. One, they're incredibly valuable in the school, but secondly, they're incredibly valuable because that gives them that leadership opportunities that the professor talked about. Leadership opportunities where they can demonstrate their abilities so we know what kind of principals we're going to have, so we're not flying blind when we say you need to be a principal. I could not agree more that we have many certificated people in this state to be principals. And the most highly qualified was not the ones we looked at. I looked at one thing when I was sorting through applications. How many of them had an athletic background? And the reason for that was, what is a principal but a coach? And what is a coach? Somebody who has developed their leadership ability. So if we do nothing else to improve education in the state, we have to have abilities to do that. I have suggested creating leadership bands or leadership badges from the standpoint where an assistant principal can aspire to become better. For example, assistant principal wants to be a digital learning expert. We provide that service and that person gets a bump in pay for the time they've done that. It could not be a recurring money, it could be non-recurring money, so it can be varied over time. But it would give an assistant principal the incentive to better themselves, to help the school. By doing that, we also give them ability to distinguish between differentiated pay. Because one of the biggest problems you have with the superintendent is how are we going to fix a bonus? How are we going to figure out where that's going to go? Because everybody looks the same. If they're sitting there and saying to a person, well, why didn't I get the bonus eligible deal? Well, look here, that person has been qualified as a digital learning person, as an ESL person, a person that is involved with community and home engagement. Suddenly that person is getting more money because of something they've done. It becomes very objective in order to get that in. We made a proposal, Piedmont Triad Education Consortium, the RESA that serves the region that I represent in the state, last year made a proposal of aligning the regional, the RESA with UNCG to engage in 12 turnaround schools in the region. And the idea behind that was that we would engage the resources of the university, we engage the resources of the community, and we engage the collective understanding of the region for a particular turnaround opportunity. What we saw as that being a potential is that it would also engage the school, the colleges in real life understanding of what it's like to be in the classroom, so that their professors would be better prepared to teach their students, and that the other aspects of the university would be brought to bear on non-education issues such as the social issues. I'd encourage folks to revisit that. We had a regional training bill some time ago as well, giving money to the RESAs for their own, to offer their own professional development from a collaborative. And the reason I say that is that not to discount what happens in DPI from the standpoint of their training or Dr. Prince and her training. It is very difficult to train the entire state. But regionally, I think we can cooperate to do that. So I would encourage folks to consider that as well. Block grant versus bonuses. I think block grants can be very difficult to deal with. And the reason I say that is that I look at charters, and charters who all their funding pretty much are block grants. And what have they done but gone around and aligned their salaries to the locals that they're keeping up with. And I think that if you're going to look at the funding aspects of schools, the report that just came out gives you ample opportunities to talk about the pros and cons of that. And I encourage you not to to go that fast in this direction at this time. It may be a place for it, but I think it's one of those things where we need to cut a couple times and measure. We measure a couple times before we cut. Bonuses are another thing that I dealt with. I've never seen a situation where a bonus will make a teacher work harder or make a principal work harder. I've seen situations where principals would gladly give up bonuses for things in their schools to make the school operate better. I would encourage school-wide bonuses. I think that is the most incentivized. And I think Ms. Berg pointed out that in the business world, group goal compensation is important. And we had a study that some of you may have seen Dr. Foster present, which he took 16 elementary schools in Winston-Salem, 8 with a bonus situation, 8 with not, and he did a comparison. And one of the things that he found out anecdotally and also just from the research, how impactful it was in that school for the principal to go out and hand out bonus checks to everyone down to the custodian and the cafeteria worker. That it changed the attitude of the school. And we have to understand, for education to work, there's 3 things that's got to happen. Teachers got to be adequately paid. They got to be highly qualified, and they got to be highly motivated. And whenever we look at pay, we need to be looking at pay as a motivational factor. I think all the presentations today were wonderful. I got something from everything of it, but I would say this: we have a tremendous capacity in North Carolina. What they did in Illinois, all the pieces are here. Dr. Prince has a wonderful organization. We got a wonderful communications and support from our communities. We have a state that's already been regionalized so that we can have regional cooperation. We just need to decide that this is an important issue, and I applaud you folks for taking the lead there. It's been a long time since we've had a constructive pay proposal that will directly impact what happens in the classroom. 2 things we know kill a classroom. The first is student mobility, because they're not there in the seats in order to collect the collective knowledge every time. The other is teacher mobility. And when you have a school that has 40% student mobility and 40% teacher mobility, there is no way that school's going to be successful. But you get a highly motivated principal in there. It's like a coach of a very good ball team. The school is a reflection of that person at the helm. And if they're good, people will not only will stay, there will be people that will line up to come. I asked a teacher one time, what would it take for you to come to one of our lowest performing, highest need schools? And the teacher said, tell me who I'm going to work for, and I'll tell you whether I'm going to go there. I thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to working with you guys in the